well, what's this about? You know, they always are very curious about it. They always question it. They don't understand it 100% to begin with. They automatically assume that it's like a short sale, foreclosure, everything of that nature. And then they start getting calls from their various buyers saying, hey, I saw this property listed. It says auction. What's it about? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of questions that are asked. And the first question always is, you know, hey, what's the position of us? Are we still representing the buyer? And of course, you know, it is a very traditional real estate transaction on that account. There is still a full 2.5% offered to those outside agents, the conjuncting agent or the cooperating broker. And the reality is that there won't ever be anything under 2.5% for an auction, because we want to make sure that that other agent gets appropriately remunerated for their efforts. The selling agents, the people that are representing the sellers, they have to work harder. There's no question about that. There's a lot more work because it's a longer process condensed into a shorter time frame. Okay, there's no question about that. But in saying that, on a buyer's perspective, okay, or being the buyer's representation or the buyer's agent, there is no more work whatsoever. If anything, there's less work, because we're basically going into the purchase with very little contingencies that need to be met, based on the fact that all the due diligence is done up front so that we can all make decisions before we have to go down that path. With auction versus traditional real estate, the way I explain it the easiest to people is that in a traditional sale, it's like fishing with one fishing line in the water. You know, once someone gets to that price or gets to the bait, they bite, we bring them in, and then we decide once we're in escrow whether or not we want it, whether or not we don't. And that creates a lot of extra work for people with it falling out and all reports and renegotiations, everything of that nature. With auction, it's different. Auction is like going out and fishing with a net. You know, you cast that net out and you bring people in, okay, and then we give them all the information we possibly can before we commit to keeping them, okay, before they commit to purchasing. And that helps the buyer's agent, helps the seller's agent, help the buyer, help the seller, and stops wasting people's time with renegotiations, finding things that didn't exist, that they didn't know existed, and after they committed. You know, I think that, again, that transparency that it provides for all parties makes everyone else very, very comfortable. We are the leaders in the world, I believe, in auctions, is based on the fact that we have always a quality control entity. The Harcourts auctions, the auctioneer is there for the quality control and guiding the agent in the process to make sure that everything's being done up to speed and above par. I think that that's very, very important, because at the end of the day, like you said, people go into things hesitating. Certainly when it comes to a decision of the magnitude of buying a home, okay, this is all about making sure that those purchasers, as well as the seller, has to be that two-way street as we spoke about, okay, is that they are comfortable. Everybody needs to be comfortable with the transaction, otherwise it will not happen for the best outcome for all parties. That is what it's designed to do. It's not designed for any individual person to have the upper edge or the motivation, whatever it may be. It is designed to have a seamless transaction, because the traditional transaction feels clunky, feels like you don't know what's going on. It's smoke and mirrors. It's interesting based on the fact that it's done so much that as soon as people are exposed to something different, okay, they tend to love it more. Yeah. Well, if you're a buyer looking to purchase at an auction, okay, the reality is it's just like a traditional sale, but there's just a few little more hoops that you have to go through before actually getting to purchase the property or put an offer in on the home. So for example, if you're a purchaser that wants to put an offer in prior to auction day, you can still do so. But the one thing that we ask is that you remove your inspection contingencies, because we've done a home inspection, we've done all the reports, all the disclosures, everything that you would need in a traditional real estate transaction to have the peace of mind is done up front for you to look at. So we ask that you remove those inspection contingencies. But also, we don't ask that you remove the finance contingencies. It's just that you cross-qualify through a lender of our choice so that we know that you're comfortable in your position and we're comfortable in that position, and advising our sellers that they should accept your offer prior to auction. If in fact you can't buy the property before auction, or we're going to auction day, or you prefer to bid on auction day for the transparency of everything, same process. You can still have a finance contingency as long as that you've gone through and you've actually cross-qualified through our lender of our choice. Not to mention as well is that there is no inspection contingencies, because we've provided everything up front. You are more than welcome as a purchaser to do your own inspection on the property, but it has to be before the property goes into escrow. The reality of it is, I always say to people though, is that you don't lose anything. So let's say it doesn't sell before auction. We go to auction day. So if it doesn't sell on auction day, we can go back to traditional. You've not lost anything, you've just gained in respect to the information that it's provided you. The only downside to the whole auction process for anybody, for a buyer, it's realizing that the property has gone, there's other people that will pay a lot more than what they will pay, okay? But that, at least they've got that realization and they know, rather than just being in a bunch of all these other offers, they don't know what other people are paying, everything of that nature, and they're under false illusions. With a seller, it's that they will find out what their home is worth in today's marketplace, and they'll have to come to that realization because it's hard to escape fact. Understanding on the other agent's point of view is that the buyer needs them more than ever, okay, than in a traditional sale. They need them more than ever in the sense that we're not actually putting a set price on the property that the seller will sell for. We're putting a bidding to start from price on the property that's under the seller's non-disclosed reserve price that they set, okay? So it's helping the agent bring them to a property that potentially they may not have gone to otherwise, okay? So the buyer needs their agent more than ever to help them establish value in that individual area, help them to manage their emotions so that they don't get carried away. So if anything, this process has been designed to more complement the buyer representation and the seller representation coming together in the transaction. You know, the first step for any agent that doesn't understand the Harcourts auctions platform is to call the agent or call the auctioneer, being myself, okay, and get an explanation of it before or going back to the client and talking to them about it. Because at the end of the day, if we look at the process of our auctions, it actually is much more streamlined than the traditional process, okay, in the sense that we're attracting the buyers to the property and encouraging them to call their agent if they've got representation, to get an idea of value and to get an idea of, you know, hey, what's happening in the area, everything of that nature. And then that agent obviously becomes a critical part to the process over the lead up. They get to talk to the buyer about whether or not they make an offer before auction to try and beat the competition out, but it still doesn't provide all that much transparency. Or should we go to auction day to see what the competition's like and everything of that nature? So that's a conversation that gets to happen between the buyer and their agent. Then also, they're giving that guidance on price from their market knowledge, okay, and everything of that nature. But then, not to mention, is that all of the reports, the disclosures, the inspections, everything is done up front. So it's very important that the agent goes through those reports and inspections and disclosures with their buyer so they understand exactly what the property is offering. Okay, maybe some of the things that might need to be done that come up on the home inspection, so they might need to adjust their price a little bit, okay? And in saying that as well, we get to auction day, the agent doesn't even really need to be there with their buyer. We recommend that they are to help them through it, to manage emotions, everything of that nature, but that agent doesn't even need to be there. Our simple question is, when anyone enters into one of our auction properties, is that, do you have an agent? And they say yes, they say no. If they say yes, obviously it's our best endeavour to get in touch with that agent and involve them as much as possible in the process and explaining the process and getting them comfortable with it, as well as getting the buyer comfortable with it as well. But either way, we believe it is a seamless and easier transaction than a traditional sale, because everything being done up front, the transparency of that nature, the involvement that they can have with their client and building that relationship. And then auction night. At auction night, they don't get a buy. One of the biggest problems that we see in today's marketplace is that in a multiple offer situation, the buyer gets upset with their agent because they lost out and they don't even know what the other offers were. They get upset with them. They build a tarnished reputation with their own buyer. This allows them to sit in a room with their client, see the other bids, and the buyer understand, well, there was somebody else that was willing to pay this much, that's why I missed out. You know, it helps that relationship, if anything.
Do agents who, non-Harcourts agents who are brought into the auction process, do they feel uncomfortable because you guys know what the hell you're doing and they don't?
Well, I think that there's no way, shape or form of any uncomfort that we've been aware of from any of our transactions that we've done, because we, again, are so transparent with everything that we do. It's kind of hard not to know what's going on. And that's what auction again provides, is that, you know, we speak about a two-way street, buyer, seller, communicating, and obviously without an agent, if they don't have agents, you know, the deal might come together a little bit easier. But the reality is that with agents, okay, we try and make sure that it's just as transparent between the selling agent and the buying agent, just so that there's no clashes, because at the end of the day, that's going to help with the seamless transaction. And in respect to them feeling, I guess, a little uncomfortable with the process, okay, that's only because there's not enough information out there, not enough information about it, okay? They don't have that in the beginning. It's just simply asking the questions, and that's what we welcome, is that please ask all the questions you need. Please go to our website, look at the frequently asked questions. Please read the confidential remarks in the MLS. Look at the supplements that we're providing. We're just simply trying to make a transaction seamless and easier.